Hi, I'm Andrew Richards of the IT Service. Do you use Excel to manage your data? If so, do you use the data validation tool to help you get better data quality? If you don't, you really should. It's a great tool. But if you do use it, are you aware of how easy it is for people to accidentally or otherwise avoid it, break it, get around it? In this video, we'll show you how to use the data validation tool, including a pro tip to use it more quickly and easily. But we'll also take a look at the ways in which it can be circumvented, the ways in which people can get around the rules that you've put in place. As with all things, by knowing the weaknesses of the tool, hopefully you can get more out of it and prevent accidental damage to your data. Let's crack on and take a look. So here we are with a really pretty simple Excel form. Now, although it is simple, I've done a few things already to hopefully help people fill it in, and there's a reason for that. You'll hear me talk a lot in videos like this about data quality. In fact, there's a saying that's a really common one, which is rubbish in, rubbish out. You've probably heard it. For my money, it mostly applies to staff. You get rubbish staff in the office and you'll get rubbish out of them. But of course, it also applies to data. The idea is that if you can get better data quality into your business through better designed forms and so on, then you'll be able to get better information out of that data. So already I've done a couple of things. I've made the background black, as you can see, and the idea of that is just that it stops people kind of clicking and fiddling and over typing formulas that I've got there or whatever else. It minimizes distractions. But I've also filled in the fields that I want people to enter data in gold. And that's for a simple reason that I can just say to people, fill in the gold cells. And hopefully it's clear what I want of them. So if I'm really lucky, I'll have a member of staff enter their name here and they'll type something like Andrew. Then they'll put their region, and our regions are north, east, south or west. So hopefully they'll type something like north and then the month name here. So maybe November. And we're all good and everybody's happy. But of course the odds are at some point you're going to get a right idiot in your office who, where it says select your sales region, doesn't type north, east, south or west, but types, I don't know, banana or something like that. And Excel lets them, because by default Excel lets you type anything anywhere. And that's what we want to restrict. That's what this data validation tool does for us. To do this, we select the cell that we want to restrict and we go to the data tab on the ribbon and click data validation. And as I said, by default you can type any value into any cell and we can change that. So this is a great tool, for example, if you want to ensure that people only enter maybe a whole number between 1 and 10. Maybe they're marking a test out of a score of 1 to 10, so we click OK, and now we can only type a number between 1 and 10. 1's great, but if I type 55, Excel says no, you're not allowed to do that. So that's how the tool works. So entering a number, yep, that's good. But perhaps more useful is this idea that we can say, turn on a restriction to allow only things in a list. Now, if that list is really simple, I can type the entries here. So if I had, for example, valid options are yes or no or maybe, I enter them like that, just typing a comma between them like so, click OK, and now you'll see I get a little arrow here and I can choose from the lists yes, no or maybe, and we're all good. But if somebody tries to type Bob, Excel says, no, that's not allowed. That's not one of the options in the list. So that's pretty good if you've got a really simple list, but much more common is that you'll have a few things in your list rather than just 2 or 3. In our case, we've got 4 things in our list, north, east, south or west. And in those scenarios, you normally put that list in a set of cells, and often those cells are on a separate sheet. So I'm going to create a new sheet here, there we go, and I'm going to enter my valid options here. So north, east, south and west, like so. Now, a pro tip, you'll find it easier to do all sorts of things if we select these valid cells here, north, east, south and west, and we name them. And we name a group of cells by simply in this name box here, you see it says name box. If I click there and I give it a name, I just type, I don't know, I'll call it regions, and then I hit enter. That has named these 4 cells regions. So wherever I want to refer to these 4 cells, I can simply refer to the name regions. Now back to my form, what I do is I select my cell, I go to data, validation,
I say allow a list, and my source is now equals regions, which is that name I gave those 4 cells. I click OK, and you'll see that my drop down arrow now allows me to choose north, east, south or west. If I try and type anything other than those, such as northwest, it says no, that's not allowed. So there we go, that's pretty good. That's what data validation is for. But the point of this, of course, was to talk to you about how we break data validation, how people can get around your rules, how people can be stupid, or of course, if it's you that's doing this, how you can express your free will. Now we can do this, we can break data validation in a number of ways. The simplest, most obvious way is to simply add a new thing into our list. There's our 4 valid options. If we just insert a cell, which I'm going to do like this, shift the cells down, and I type in banana here, then that's in my list. My list now contains northeast, southwest, and banana. So I'm now allowed to type banana. So that's an easy thing to control, hopefully. Most commonly what people do is, let's take out banana, just delete that cell. What most commonly people do is hide the sheet that contains these lists. So if I've got this list here, I can right click on the sheet and say hide this sheet. And I can take another step to stop people unhiding the sheet if I go to the review tab on the ribbon and I say protect this workbook. One of the impacts of protecting a workbook, and I can even give it a password if I want, is that people can no longer right click and unhide. That option is grayed out. So if I put my list on a separate sheet, I hide that sheet and then I protect the workbook, that stops people typing an entry that I don't want them to have in that list of valid options. So now we've found one way of breaking this and hopefully a way of stopping people breaking it. But there is another way, and I'm afraid this comes under the heading of stuff that you do wrong when you set this up. So let me unprotect my workbook again. If I go back to my cell, data, there we go, and I go to data, validation, I've allowed a list of options, and that's the list called regions. But on the error alert tab is a tick box that says show an error alert. And if I've accidentally unticked that, it's ticked by default, but if I've unticked it, then the rule is still there in theory, and I've got my drop down arrow. But if I type something that's not in the list, Bob, it lets me do it. I've said don't show people an error. So that's the second way, and again, I'm afraid this comes under you doing it wrong rather than people breaking your rule. If you turn off that show error alert tick box here on the error alert tab, then unfortunately people won't see the error and they can type kind of what they like, even if the setting is allow the list called regions. So now I've stopped people typing whatever they want, and just to prove it, there's my valid options, and if I type banana, once again Excel stops me. But there's one more really simple way of breaking data validation, and that's this. If I want to have that my region is Northwest, because I am convinced that I do work in the Northwest, I type it somewhere else. So let's say I type it here where I've got Andrew at the moment. I then simply copy it from here and I paste it there. You see, what I've done is not just copy the cell which said Andrew, but I've copied all the properties of that cell, including the validation. So if I go and look at the data validation properties now, you'll see that under settings, I'm back to allowing any value, because that was the setting for the cell for my name. And when I pasted my name here, or pasted Northwest here, it's pasted that option to allow any value again. So you've got to be a little bit careful, because if people copy and paste, they can get around your data validation really simply. What's the way to protect against that? Well, once again, on the review tab, you could look to protect the sheet. And if you turn on protect sheet, there's all sorts of things that you can stop people doing or prevent people from doing by ticking and unticking the various options here. I think that's probably a subject for a different video, because there's all sorts of options in here. But essentially, if you protect the sheet, then you'll also be protecting against unwanted copying and pasting.
So there you go. Hopefully you found that useful. If so, why not subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever we put out videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you again soon.